Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to Visions for the Future of Higher Ed. My name is Imran Mouna. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by an incredible guest. This is Marianne Marando, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction because I actually posted a teaser of Marianne's experience on LinkedIn, and people were already guessing that those credentials belong to you, Marianne. But for those of you who are new to higher ed and might not have had a chance to learn a bit about the leaders that are shaping this field, let me just quickly introduce Marianne to you and share a little bit about her background before I start asking you questions, Marianne.
Perfect.
So this is one of my favorite parts of doing the podcast is actually getting to know people that I've had a chance to work with in a little bit more detail. So Marianne has had an incredible career in education. She has made contributions at Durham College, George Brown College, and most recently at Seneca Polytechnic as the Vice President, Academic and International. You also have a number of certifications under your belt, Marianne, a doctorate in education and educational leadership from Western University, an honors bachelor's in business administration from York University, as well as a ton of industry experience. I understand you spent over 10 years in marketing and strategy for global brands like Johnson & Johnson and Baxter International, and have played a huge role in your community. Marianne was one of the board chairs for Blue Door, providing emergency housing and support in the York region. So someone with a ton of experience, but also in the time I've had to work with Marianne, someone with incredible amount of passion for education. So thank you again for being here and for spending some time with us, Marianne. I'm really looking forward to hearing your stories and insights. And the first kind of question I had for you is actually about your transition from a very successful corporate career into education. What made you want to pursue a career in higher ed, Marianne? Where did this all start for you?
Thanks for the question and thanks for that introduction. Exhausted just listening to all those things that I've done and old. I feel old. So I've been around the block. So interesting. I never thought I would go into education. It was never a dream to teach. I got into teaching when I had my first daughter because I was looking for something I could do while balancing sort of the joys of motherhood. So it kind of started as a very practical career choice. And I saw an ad. I was actually at Wonderland with my baby daughter, pushing her through the Wonderland amusement park. And I saw an ad looking for a full-time marketing professor at George Brown. And I had never taught at a college. My experience was teaching Sunday school was my teaching experience, to be honest.
Oh,
Never
wow.
taught. And I just said, I'm going to try it. So I applied for the full-time marketing job and I got the job. And shocked a lot of people because I never taught part-time. I'd never done contract training or anything. So I got the job and I said, okay, it sounds interesting. I'll give it a try. And immediately realized it was what I was meant to do. And immediately realized I had made the right choice, right? I guess I was just sort of, I fell into it, but I fell into something that turned into a passion of mine and just immediately realized I was a teacher at heart from the beginning. And the rest is history in terms of my career. And although I moved into administration several years later, I've always taught. I've kept teaching. And even when I was a chair, I taught a course. When I was a director, I taught a course. And so always consider myself a teacher at heart.
That's always interesting to hear how it gets started and what motivates people. And exciting to hear when someone has found what is right for them.
I was just lucky. I mean, I was so lucky in that it started for very practical reasons, but I just stumbled upon a career that sort of lit me up from inside in terms of my passion.
I think that's the kind of leadership we need now are people who are actually passionate about education, who enjoy teaching. And I think coming from an industry background, I feel people would have been lucky to learn from someone who has that type of experience. So now in the time that you've played all these different roles, from teaching to actually guiding the direction for some of these institutions, what are some of the things you've been focused on changing? What are some of the things that you think are important to keep top of mind as we set the new strategic directions and initiatives for higher ed?
Well, it's the challenge always is preparing students for a changing world and the world changes quickly and post-secondary institutions don't always change as quickly. So that's been, I remember 20 years ago, the challenge of, all of a sudden calculators and math
Right.
teachers who didn't want to use calculators in math and then Excel to do functions and math teachers who were like, they can't use calculators. That would be terrible. And now it's AI. So it's always staying on top of the next advancement as students so that we can prepare students. So the world is changing and we need to prepare students for that world. But at the same time, students are changing, and it's a very different type of student than when I taught. They come at us, digital natives, they come at us with a slew of things going on in their lives that I didn't see 30 years ago. So the challenge is changing world, changing student, but our workforce is pretty stable. And so it's a combination of, that presents some challenges in preparing faculty and how we as administrators are prepared to make sure students are engaged and ready for the job.
Well, it really is a two-part challenge, isn't it? I know that part of that question comes from how do we prepare students for this rapidly changing world? It feels like it's changing faster than ever. But a huge part of that equation is how to prepare staff to accommodate students and meet their expectations. So, what are some of the things you're hearing, and what are some of the challenges top of mind for you to try to figure out for faculty? Is it, you know, providing professional development for some of these new AI based areas of learning, or what sorts of things are coming across your desk that, you're trying to help
Yeah.
solve for faculty?
Right now, our biggest challenge is AI because faculty at first were afraid of it, and some still are afraid of it. And the first reaction, I mean, AI hit our radar maybe a year and a half ago, I want to say, maybe 2 years ago. And the first reaction from faculty was fear and shut it down. And we can't let students use it. And, let's block it from ever being used. That's a natural reaction to something they didn't understand. And so bringing faculty, and that wasn't my reaction at all. My reaction was embrace it. We have to help them use it, teach them how to use it, make sure they're using AI, not run for it. So how do you get from hiding, faculty hiding and being afraid, to embracing it? So we've done a couple things. Part of it is PD. We do a lot of peer-to-peer. We have two faculty full-time, we call them thought leaders. So their full-time job is to meet with other faculty on a peer-to-peer level. And they're not techie folks. They can't write code. One is a lawyer and one is, a expert in sustainability, but I chose them because they're influencers and they can talk to faculty peer to peer and identify challenges and just helping introduce these new tools that students need to be exposed to, and helping faculty understand that in order to prepare our students for work, they need to know how to use AI tools. It's simple as that. And you may not have used them in your career, but you need to retool to be prepared to train our students. So the AI thought leaders provide sort of peer-to-peer mentoring. We are investing a lot in PD for our faculty. I mean, it's not rocket science for faculty. It's if you teach HR and now there's some AI tools around the writing interview questions, for example, it's not that hard to retrain a faculty to bring yourself up to speed. So we've been doing it from bottom up through PD and then top down from sort of some of the policy and support that we have, but then also peer-to-peer.
That's a really helpful insight because I feel like initially there was this sense that, well, we need AI experts to come and explain things to us. But I think approaching it from the thought leader perspective, where you're not necessarily having overly technical people explain these tools, makes it more approachable. So that's an interesting strategy for those out there looking for ways to help staff adapt to these. I think that's a great
Yeah.
suggestion.
The other thing I heard a lot was just develop an AI course and make every student take an AI course, which I also think is the wrong approach because you have to infuse AI into every course. So that would have been an easy thing for me, just to hire someone to teach AI course and then it's quicker, but I didn't think that was the right thing to do. And when you've been around as long as I have, everything comes around again, because this was the exact same challenge with e-commerce. And when I was teaching marketing, at first it was we need to give students an e-commerce course or a marketing tech course, and we quickly realized every marketing course has to have sort of technology and e-commerce built into it. So I sort of thought back to that, and that's how we decided we're not going to have an AI course. We have some programs in AI where we're teaching students, code and machine learning and all those. But in terms of our every other program, it's infused in every course.
That is noticeable at Seneca because I think it adds context to what AI is capable of. And a general course keeps it a little bit at arm's length. But when you see it integrated and used in these different areas of student interest, I think that completely changes what you're learning. So I would say, yeah, from what I've seen, Seneca has done an incredible job of integrating this in a way that people can keep up with and get excited about. So hats off to you on that
Right.
front,
Yeah, it's
Marianne.
exciting. It's exciting. And when we hear from our industry partners, more and more, and you're an industry partner, you hire people, and you probably feel the same way, that they are looking for us to provide AI experience. They're, people who have small to medium sized organizations and even larger organizations, they're like, okay, your graduates better have AI because I know I need to know it in my business, but I don't know what I need to know. So they're really prioritizing AI as they hire.
I've been hearing that. Absolutely. I've been hearing it that they're looking for students who understand how to leverage these tools. But I can also understand, kind of to your earlier point, where the initial fear comes from. It does sound very similar to when calculators came on the scene, and it was this worry that students are going to be missing some fundamental understanding of how math works. And I think that is what happened when AI first became something that students were using. But is that shifting? Are you seeing faculty start to go, okay, I kind of get where this can be used?
Yeah, it's starting. I mean, and as in any change management, any change, you have the 20% who jump on it right away. And, we have some of our faculty that are ahead of us and they were on it and they're using it. And then you have 20% that are never going to move and probably have been teaching for a really long time and they're never going to embrace AI. So we'll make sure they're teaching courses that they can teach. And then the bulk, 60%, they're moving along slowly, right? So
Yeah.
I think we're making traction on the 60% of folks that I think are interested in moving forward. I think we're seeing changes. People are understanding it. People are less afraid. There's a huge sort of academic integrity component. I'm sure you've heard about, students, and that takes a different way of assessing. So those things take time. The thing is, AI is fast, and it takes us time to catch up. And so we're making progress. I think we're making good progress on all fronts. And we're not going to hit everyone. Not every faculty is going to come on board. And, so it's a matter of finding spots for them where they can still do their thing in a meaningful way.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not necessary to force it into things. It's meant
Yeah.
to complement services.
Yeah.
So I think that's, again, it's good to not kind of have a blanket approach and be thoughtful about where and how it's integrated. The other kind of line of questioning I was hoping to hear your insights on is I've been hearing more and more about this concept of lifelong learning and how institutions can support students after they graduate, because there is this period of time where students are looking for jobs and they're trying to figure out what happens next. And there's still some skill development that they are looking for support on. Has that come to mind for anyone or for yourself, Marianne, on how institutions can support students after graduation? Is that a topic on your mind right
Yeah,
now?
it's very much top of mind. And the cycles are so that's always been the case. You graduate and eventually you're going to have to retool. That's been forever. The cycles are shorter now. So you graduate and in a year things are new. Like, so the need to retrain and upskill is shorter than ever. So we recognize that. So what are we doing at Seneca to sort of meet the needs is we're looking for more flexible delivery options where possible, courses at different times of the day, hybrid, flex, ways to make this learning accessible in smaller bites for people working. It is a big part of our strategic plan, that alumni engagement piece. A customer is a customer for life. That piece of, you're a Seneca alum, you're doing well in your career because of Seneca. Now come back and let us help you keep doing well in your career. And we're engaging alumni by offering them, short burst learning, contract training opportunities, flexible learning, and ways to keep their skills up to date. But it's shorter than ever. It's
Nice.
almost like you think you're done with education, but you're never done.
Oh, I think that's part of just adapting to how quickly things are changing right now. So it's nice to know that there's, thought being put into ongoing support for students who are out there. And I think another thing that I'm excited to try to explore in this series is how leaders can support other leaders. It's been exciting to see how collaborative the higher education industry is, and how it's not just one group trying to solve these problems. If one school figures out a way to integrate these services, other schools are quick to reach out for help. So one of the other questions I had to ask you was, is there a challenge top of mind for you that you would be interested in learning how others are approaching? Like, are there questions you have that you would want to hear the thoughts of other leaders on?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some great leaders in our sector, and I certainly don't have all the answers, definitely. And so I think the challenge around digital literacy and AI literacy for faculty is
Mm,
something I'd love to hear how other people are doing it. And it's maybe something we can, as a sector, support together would be great. the challenge of, keeping students engaged, these, digital native students who have an attention span of an ant, trying to keep them engaged in material. And I mean, best practices in that area are interesting to me, and how we integrate the tools like AI. And then the next tool that's coming, it won't be long till the next tool is here. So I think we can all learn a lot from each other. We are a very collaborative sector, but we're still competitive in some ways. And I think there's always opportunity to learn. The other important thing for me, the thing on my radar, is sort of a leadership gap piece. And, how are we supporting our young leaders in the sector to be prepared to be the senior leaders, as many senior leaders are hitting that age when they're rolling off? I think it's going to be an interesting challenge. I look around the tables, and there's a group of us that are sort of at the end of our careers, and then a group at the start of their career. And how do we help young leaders, manage through that?
That's a great point. And for those watching who are looking for that kind of advice and insight, do you have any tips top of mind for those who are looking to advance in their higher education career? As someone who has, experienced that firsthand, what kind of comes to mind that people should consider as they try to advance through this sector?
I always tell young leaders to, number one, find a mentor, find someone you respect, could be in your institution or not, and use that person to mentor and provide advice, but also be open to opportunities. So my career path, I was a professor, and then I became a chair, and then I took a lateral move to be a director of marketing. That was considered a lateral move, to be director of marketing at a post-secondary institution. And a lot of people at that time said, what are you doing? Like, you're getting off the track, right? Because the track is chair, dean, vice president. You're getting off the academic track. You're taking a side turn. And I embraced it as an opportunity, and it taught me so much about parts of the institution I had no idea about. And it made me a much better leader. So I always say, your path isn't going to be straight. Lateral opportunities and opportunities to take on things you never thought you would do are really, really great. And it provides such a broader leadership lens versus someone who's strictly been on the academic track. So I tell people to look for opportunities in facilities, or in services, or in the registrar's office. And so as you build your career, don't think of one path forward.
That's very helpful advice, because I could see people being hesitant about making a lateral move, thinking they're missing something or doing something wrong. But to your point, it can only enhance your understanding of the organization and the people that work within it. So I think that's really helpful advice.
And we try to teach our students this, and around collaboration, and how more than ever, as when you hit the workforce and in life, you need to collaborate and communicate. And so what collaboration is enhanced by understanding. And so I think that when you as you take more senior roles, the more experience and understanding of other areas of your institution that you have, or the sector that you have, I think you're naturally a better collaborator, because you can see things through other people's eyes. And so we teach our students that, right? Collaboration is one of the key skills that we think is important. So I think it's important for us to teach our young managers that as well.
I absolutely agree. And that makes me wonder, as you were coming up through the ranks, were there people or attributes that you admired in the leaders that, have been around you? What were the things that you kind of gravitated towards or appreciated in seeing in leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I've gravitated and I appreciated people that were similar to me, and people that were opposite. So there's two poles. So, I tend to be very aggressive and aggressive, innovative. I like to move fast, and I get frustrated with the slowness of things. And if I have a mission, I'm on it fast. And so I gravitated to more thoughtful, methodical leaders, people that could help me. And if you look at my team, I surround myself with people like that, people who help me to say, okay, that's great. Think about this, think about this. And so I think you look to people who offset your weaknesses. And that's what I found that very helpful, to help slow me down a little bit and think things through a little bit. And I help them by maybe pushing them a little bit. But I'm very inspired by sort of visionary, engaging leaders that understand the relationship part of leadership, the heart. I always say I lead starting with my heart first, and my brain follows. And so I'm very attracted to leaders like that, who have similar profiles. I'm also very much a fan of the hardcore, very much linear thinking leaders. They bring something to the table. We all learn from each other. So lots of people have influenced me in my career. I'm very lucky.
Well, that's amazing to hear. And something I really admire about your leadership approach is that concept of surrounding yourself with people that can help in areas that you might not be as strong. I personally think that's a defining quality of a great leader, because I think there's a perception that it can be threatening to bring someone in who is better at something than you are. But I
Yeah,
think that's the mark of leadership is actually finding
I
those
agree.
people,
So 2 things on that. You have to find them and then you have to listen to them, because
right?
that's not always easy. And so this is not an original quote, but I've quoted this on often a lot. And if you categorize leaders as A, B, C, and A is the best, C is the worst. B's hire A's. So if you're a B, you hire an A. You surround yourself with A's and then you become an A. C's hire D's. So if you're like a poor leader, you're going to hire someone like less qualified than you, right? And so I always try to hire people. Every time I've hired someone, someone has walked into my office and said, you just hired someone who's going to replace you. Why would you do that? And I said, yeah, I did. That's exactly what I did, right? Always hire above, right? And so that's number one part is to hire. The number two part, sometimes harder than to listen to them and keep an open mind.
It's interesting. And maybe the last question I'll ask you, and I know we'll start running out of time here, is it's similar to, I think, the fear around going back to talking about AI for a second, is this sense that, there are going to be things that there are other people or other tools can do better than you. So how does bringing those people in or those tools in make it easier for you to focus on the things like maybe that, your heart gravitates towards, as you said? Do you find it creates more space for you to focus on the things that you are good at and enjoy, or how does that play out?
Yeah, it sort of clears your mind, right? So I'll give you a personal example. I'm a terrible editor. I'm a great writer. I think I'm a good writer, but I miss commas, I miss punctuation, I miss letters, I type fast. And so that's I spent a lot of time rereading and editing, but now with tools, it's so much easier, right? I can chunk out like thoughts and someone else can turn it into something. And that just makes my life a lot easier and frees me up to do the thinking behind, the document that I'm trying to prepare. So especially people with my skill set, I use AI all the time to help me with my writing, to help me with my research, to help me think, scenario plan. So embracing it, and then that just frees up your mind space to think and talk to people.
I think that's an uplifting message, and I think it's the truth in terms of how we can leverage our team and these tools to do the things we are best at. I was just talking about this yesterday, actually, in terms of this podcast. Something I have struggled with is the editing of
Yes.
long form recordings like this. It would take me a very long time, so I'd get to have fewer of these conversations. But now, with some of the tools that are available, I can focus on these types of conversations and not on having to now go back and edit this, over
Yeah,
the
that's
next few
great.
hours. So I think
Great.
that's a great point, Marianne.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
This has been fun. Time flies.
it does fly. I will let you get going. Thank you again so much for your time today.
Thanks.
Truly appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Great. Great spending time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Talk soon.